there should also be some restraints for this kind of monopoly and to restrain the abuse of dominant position and the anti-competitive business practice. But for most developing countries, I could see that for most developing countries who implement the RPR law, most of them just implement the first red line. It means that they just provide some protection to innovation, to intellectual property right. But for those practice, anti-competitive practice or abuse of dominant position, it seems not the other, not another red line. So for certain practice, in fact, these anti-competitive practice may do harm to the economy. I also give some examples for these activities. So maybe you can see this a very typical anti-competitive RPR practice. So first is a refusal to license. It very frequently appears. And the second is tie-in, to tie a patent with another issue, for instance, the Microsoft case. And third is price discrimination, and also the predatory pricing, and also the excessive pricing, and also is very frequent grant back provisions. So all these practices could not be. It's difficult to put it into the RPR regulation, but it's also may do harm to the economies of developed countries. So this I mean that the nature of the RPR have such kind of requirement for the government to put both lines into the regulation. And the second, maybe I could illustrate some competition-related provisions in the TRIPS agreement. It could be seen from the TRIPS agreement a certain articles are competition-related. The first is the Article 8.2, which provided that appropriate measures, provided that they are consistent with the provision of this agreement, may be needed to prevent, first, abuse of the intellectual property rights by right holders, or resort to, second, practices which unreasonably restrain trade, or third, adversely affect the international transfer of technology. However, maybe you can read from this article that there's a lot of flexibilities in this regulation. It seems this article is not a very strong obligation, because it said it may be needed. So all the members may have the authority to implement such kind of regulation in their national law. But also some restrictions for this kind of domestic measure, because this said appropriate measure. So how you could evaluate what kind of measure is appropriate is also a difficult question maybe in future. And so this is the principle in the TRIPS agreement. And also we can see a very detailed article in Article 40, with the title is the control of anti-competitive practice in contractual licenses. In fact, there are two kinds of rules in this article. The first is substantive rules. It said that the member government may implement some regulations to we could give some restraints to the to certain practice that may have adverse effects on trade, or may implement the transfer of and dissemination of technology. And also the other provision in Article 40.2, which said that nothing in the agreement shall prevent members from blah blah blah. A member may adopt consistent with the other provision in the article, appropriate measure to prevent or control such practice, which may include, for example, first, exclusive grant-back conditions, second, conditions preventing challenges to validity, and the third, conceive package licensing in light of relevant laws and regulation of that member. So this is also not a very solid obligation to WP members, but merely give some right or give some policy rooms to WP members to implement some competition-related regulations. And also there's certain procedural rules in Article 40. So the first is the cooperation between members regarding this kind of anti-competitive practice, business practice, and the other is opportunity for consultation between members regarding this kind of issue. So all in all, we can see that it's not a very clear and solid obligation to WP member. And also there could be seen from other articles in TRIPS agreement, it could be also seen as competition-related provision. The first is Article 6 regarding the exhaustion of rights, and also Article 13, 17, and 30. There's some limitation and exceptions of the intellectual property right, respectively regarding copyright, trademark, and patent. And we can see several WTO panels have give some interpretation regarding these kind of exceptions, especially regarding how the limitation of these kind of exceptions, and there are some certain limitations in the implementation. But also we can see this as a kind of restraint of intellectual property right that in that case we can give some protection to other interests, the public interest or social interest. And also we can see that in Article 37 on the compulsory license, this is also very important because the compulsory license is now seen as the most effective remedies to anti-competitiveness, competitive practice in the intellectual property rights. And there are also some members have implementing the compulsory license regulation, and also they have some, in fact, issued some compulsory license in certain cases, and then this is also a very controversial case in the WTO TRIPS agreement. And third, maybe we can look at the experience of some certain development members who use the competition law to balance the RPR and other and the fair competition. I just want to mention two WTO members. First, the United States, and the second is the European communities. We can see that the United States has established its intellectual property rights law maybe 100 years ago. For instance, the copyright law is in 1790s, and trademark law is in 1880s. But on the other hand, the U.S. The history of the U.S. Antitrust law is relatively short. This means that for certain periods, it's only intellectual property rights, but no restraints from the antitrust side, or from this kind of regulations. Is less kind of regulation. But we can see that from last century, that the U.S. has implemented this antitrust law very actively. And I can get a figure from the United States that from 1940 from 1941 to 1959, there was 107 judgments in which patent rights were restricted, and also the use of the compulsory license continued after that date. Namely, that maybe over 10,000 of patents have been compulsory licensed in the United States in that period. And for instance, in one case, it's the U.S. Manufacturers Aircraft Association In that case, about 1,500 patents were compulsory license. So that means that the U.S. has used the measure of compulsory license as a remedy of the certain abuse of intellectual property right practice very frequently and very widely. And also in 1995, the U.S. also issued a guideline for license of intellectual property right. So that's the practice of the United States. And also for the European communities, we can see from the Treaty of the European Communities, Article 81 and Article 82, it also gives some regulation on this is the general rules of competition regarding anti-cartel abuse of dominant position. And also, but in 2004, the EC had also published a new regulation on the technology transfer agreement. Previously, there is another regulation, but this regulation new version is to give some guidelines to how to judge certain practice, whether it is compatible with the free market. In fact, it gives some safe harbors to certain practice in the technology transfer agreement, and it also gives some guidelines on certain so-called hardcore cartel or hardcore practice, or most harmful practice in certain contracts. And but there's also a gray area that need for the competition authority to give the determination eventually. But I do not have some statistics regarding how many cases in European communities regarding intellectual property rights, and but there are also I could see that a certain number of cases, for instance, Marjorie case, and also several cases have very influential and also have some indication to the right holders and for them for their practice. And third, maybe we can see that what kind of challenges that developing countries are facing implementing intellectual property rights as well as implementing the competition policy. I could see that there are a lot of difficulties for developing countries. First, most of them do not have competition law, or even they have competition law, they have very little experience in how to implement these competition policies. I could read from the maybe it's from the UNCTAD report. About 90 countries have competition legislation recently, but most of them are after 1990s. So compared with the U.S. and the EC, all the developing members they have a very limited experience in how to control the intellectual right with the tool of competition policy. And second, most developing members have a very limited capacity in implementing competition policy. That is because of the nature of competition policy, because competition law or antitrust law is somewhat different from other legislation, because they have some certain kind of rule of procedures or rule of reason. So many practice, in many practice, the competition policy have to evaluate the benefit and the loss of a certain anti-competitive practice to see whether they should have some regulation or some punishment or remedy to certain practice. So it's very difficult for developing members to implement the rules of competition policy, even they have this kind of regulation. And third, I could say that it's like many developing members have lack of infrastructures or innovation capacity to implementing competition policies. That maybe maybe I can give the case in the pharmaceutical industry, because even developing member may issue a compulsory license maybe the domestic industry do not have the capacity to manufacture certain pharmaceuticals. So this is the problem for certain developing members. And fourth is developing members, they all are facing a very weak position in transfer of technology, because most developing countries, they are the receiving part in the transfer of technology. So they're quite vague in argument or in negotiation a transfer of technology agreement. So it's difficult for them to have a very hard competition policy in this regard. So maybe I can give some certain examples from China, because I'm very familiar with it. First is after China's accession to the WTO in 2002, China published a new regulation on administration of import and export of technology. And in this Article 29, it gives a certain kind of blacklist to illustrate what kind of practice anti-competitiveness with anti-competitiveness. So Article 28 regulates that a technology import contract shall not contain any of the following restrictive clauses. There are seven. In fact, there are seven items under this article. I just give you some examples. The first, requiring the receiving party to accept any additional condition unnecessary for the technology import, including buying any unnecessary technology, raw material, products, equipment, or services. And second, requiring the receiving party to pay exploration fee for technology when the term of validity of the patent right in which had expired, or the patent right of which had been invalidated, or to undertake other relevant obligations. So this kind of item seems like a blacklist that technology import contract could not contain this kind of clauses. But I could not see whether this article is efficient in practice, because there's certain kind of, because I have heard from some lawyers that they are going to try to use do something to circumvent this article. They try to add something that is try to circumvent the article. And also I could give you some example of China's competition law and RPR law. So it's just several months ago, the Chinese National Congress has just adopted a new anti-monopoly law, and it will come into force in 2008. And also we have a new patent law. It will be the new patent law, because I have already it was published on the website. You can see from the National RPR Office website a new draft of patent law. It will incorporate compulsory license as a remedy to anti-competitive practice. Okay, thank you. So in future, maybe we can have a more a strong or a comprehensive legislation on this issue. And fifth, maybe we can pick up some recommendations in the WIPO development agenda. There's three kind of maybe I can read from the proposal. There's three kind of recommendations. First, technical cooperation is mentioned in the document. There's said that development members should be given more technical assistance in regard of the competition issues while they implement their intellectual property rights law, including capacity building. Maybe I could guess, and also some technical support for legislation. Second is norm setting. So the committee is have the obligation to do some activities, to do something in this regard. Maybe I could suggest maybe they could put some guidelines in how to regulate RPR with the competition policy, or they could also provide some model legislations. And also, I could mention the one most efficient way for this norm setting, because maybe we could add some more efficient rules in the TRIPS agreement, because we can see previously that the rules in Article 40 are quite weak and quite ambiguous. So I think in future, maybe in light of we should have the two red lines. The first is for the intellectual property right, and the other for the fair competition. So we should maybe in future to add some more efficient rules in the TRIPS agreement. And third is recommendation on the exchange of experience and information. So maybe we can see this kind of practice have already appeared in the UNCTAD meetings. And the last point is my personal recommendation for the future to incorporate competition policy into the intellectual property right enforcement. I could have some three suggestions. The first, for the development members to improve their domestic regulation. This could be seen from several aspects. First, maybe both the intellectual property law and competition law should be improved. That means that we should add some competition regulations in the RP law, and also we should put the RP intellectual property right as one of the most important sector in the competition enforcement. And the second, we can see that maybe development members could utilize the flexibilities in the TRIPS agreement, particularly in Article 40 and Article 31 and also Article 6 on the exhaustion of rights. And third, maybe it needs a lot of time for development members to develop a competition culture. Is very important to build a fair and efficient market in development members. And my second suggestion may be because the competition law is very complex and it's difficult. It's really difficult to implement. So maybe we need a step-step approach to achieve the balance between competition and intellectual property rights. Maybe an easy way is to have some white lists and black lists, so to illustrate what kind of practice is legal and what kind of practice is illegal. So maybe it's easy for different members to go with. And third, maybe we need to some international or regional cooperation. That is particular in some circumstances that the development members may lack of capacity to implement competition regulation. That's an example, but we can have a very good example in Doha public health regulation. It have some eventually it has solved the problem of the capacity in development members, because certain development members do not have the capacity to even to grant a compulsory license. So maybe this is a good example, but maybe it could happen in other areas and in future, because it will give us some example that how important that international and regional cooperation is needed in achieving the balance between the intellectual property right and the competition. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.